What made you pursue with such determination solving your own case with eczema? How did that fuel the spark within you to become the person that brings light to that forgotten knowledge or the knowledge that's just been ignored?
My experience with this dermatitis was that it was very small and it just stayed like that for a very long time, years. And it started after I entered medical training, but then I was struggling with it for the whole time after that and couldn't sleep, struggled with symptoms, the itchiness, and then was being prescribed lots of medications, like topical medications, and none of them were really working. And then it got so much worse at a certain point, like it just went completely out of control. My eyes, all the skin around my eyes got damaged. The skin was just bursting open. It just was splitting and wouldn't stay shut. And then at one point, it just went whoosh, and I had scabs all over my neck. And I was working as a clinical clerk in the hospital at this time. And so I was starting to get funny looks from other coworkers and staff, nurses, patients, and it was painful. It was physically painful. It was psychologically painful. Obviously, I was dealing with social issues as well. I had people come up to me and ask, do you have varicella? And I was like, well, I knew that it was related to the small dermatitis that I'd had for about 2 years by then. So I knew that it wasn't varicella. At that time, I started seeing a dermatologist and then continually getting these topical medications. Then I got prescribed phototherapy and went on medical leave. And then after I started the phototherapy, which I didn't need, none of the medications, I didn't need any of them. All of the pain and the struggles and the symptoms that I'd experienced for 2.5 years were for nothing. It was all preventable. Had it been something really rare and not preventable at all, then I think I would have been more understanding. And especially because I was in training. So the fact that I had so much trouble figuring this out, and that, none of my peers, none of the staff who I was seeing on a day-to-day basis, none of the physicians who I saw had diagnosed me correctly in a timely manner, I would have been more understanding. However, because my allergy is actually not that rare, and lots of people struggle with different kinds of chemical allergies, whether it's metal allergies, nickel, gold, fragrance. We hear a lot about people being sensitive to fragrance, and that can range, but it can be as severe as what I had in terms of this allergic contact dermatitis, is what it's called, allergic contact dermatitis. And so I really had to reckon with that, I think, because it meant that something had gone wrong in my training, that this very common type of allergy, we didn't even get a minute of training on it. And in terms of eczema, we were just told that, steroids, topical steroids are the mainstay. And then now if we look on Instagram, for example, we can see a lot of people talking about topical steroid withdrawal, which affects a certain percentage of people who get prescribed these medications. And so the fact that I needlessly was prescribed this for 2.5 years and dealt with all of that, and then had to deal with all of the psychological and social repercussions, and even having rashes, visible rashes on my face and neck, and being mistreated by staff in the hospital was eye-opening to me. And I really had to take a step back and think about whether what we were doing was right. Because at the time also, there was a COVID vaccine rollout, and it was big. On social media, it was very big in terms of all the discourse and the way it was being rolled out, with mandates and requiring notes for exceptions and things like this, was I think questionable as well. Myself, having suffered from a chemical allergy, I felt a lot of stigma, an enormous amount of stigma came out towards people who wanted to raise issues with chemical safety, drug safety, personal care products, food products, any kind of issue with our consumer products that dealt with chemicals. And so with this severely stigmatized and neglected issue of these chemical allergies, I had to do something. And of course, with diagnosis, there's grief and there's anger because of loss of the previous health that you had, loss of your body parts or functioning or whatever it is. And for me, it was my skin. And people just don't see skin the same way as if you lose a finger or a toe, for example. They're like, oh, it's just skin. Or they don't understand how painful it is, or how it's affecting you at night or your day-to-day or whatnot. They tell you to stay home if you're having accessibility issues and all sorts of things. There's a lot of societal consequences related to having dermatitis. And so I struggled with that a lot, and I was dealing with the grief and the anger and trying to communicate that. And so the first thing I did was I created a worksheet that was like just a person with different rashes on them, and what might be the cause of a rash on somebody's face or on their hand or whatnot. And usually it's something that's touching that part of the body, if it's a chemical or a consumer product or whatnot. And it's very, very simple. Like even a child can understand this. And then I was like, wait a second, there's something here, because this visual representation, along with the terminology, a little exercise, maybe a story around it, there is something here that needs to be further explored. There's more to build out. And so I made a whole workbook of these kind of different worksheets related to medical issues and topics. But it wasn't, I would say it wasn't successful because my skill level wasn't there in terms of making the product, and also because most people are not looking for this kind of book unless they're in training. Not everyone is interested in all topics. Like only some people are interested in allergies, and some people are interested in diabetes, and other people are interested in, public health or whatnot. There's so many different topics, and people tend to pick and choose what they're interested in learning. But then I continued on, and I was like, okay, well, I got feedback that I need to make the book smaller, more age appropriate, and focused on topics that fit that age group or whatnot. So I started with kindergarten, and I said, okay, let's make A to Z books. One book on childhood rashes, one book on rare allergies, one book on anatomy, one book on surgery words, and then a book on medical history, and then a book on histology. And so this set for kindergarten to grade 3, they're all A to Z books, 6 books, and brought these out to a STEM fair as well as a book fair. And when people look at these books, they're like, they see where it's going. They see that, this technical advanced knowledge has been distilled, but still not oversimplified. The essence of all of this knowledge is still there, but it's brought to a level of understanding, and the activities are appropriate for somebody who has never seen any of this before. I then decided to make a storybook about my own experience. It's very loosely based on my own experience of the dermatitis, but it's a story about a girl who is itchy, and then she finds out about these allergies on a television show. And so she's sitting on her couch, and then suddenly Midazolinone comes up on TV, and she gets the light bulb, and she's like, that is why I'm itchy. And she goes and she sees like what is in her paints and her soaps and all of this stuff. And after making that book, I illustrated it all myself, wrote the story and everything. It was the only book that I have made so far where I illustrated it myself. And after drawing everything, I was like, whoa, that was a huge amount of healing coming from that. But I also felt really sad because my whole journey, this 2.5 years, even more, because I had other issues related to the dermatitis, had now been reduced to a small children's book, this little 32-page children's book, and also with questions of representation, even though one of the objects or the goal was to be represented, have representation in media, like in a children's book or in video or whatever, just have this character represented who has this chemical allergy. One of the first books about a chemical allergy, and definitely the first children's book about my chemical allergy. At the same time, this chemical allergy doesn't only affect children, it affects adults. And so, the fact that it is a little girl it somehow speaks to the child in all of us, but it's not the full story. It doesn't represent everyone. And then there are a lot of cases where people with my allergy or with other chemical allergies, they actually do get good support from healthcare professionals who they happen to find the right one who knows about these things, and they get lots of help. They get tested and all of this stuff. And my story was like nothing like that. I was like on my own trying to find an answer because I had just not gotten the help that I needed, and just stumbled upon my allergy on social media. And so that was, I think, hard, because that is a hard story to tell in the healthcare space, where usually the healthcare provider is supposed to be the hero of the story. And so, yes, being able to make a book, it was healing for me, but also very saddening. I felt very sad after making that book. I've started work on the second book, which has more going on with this same character who has the chemical allergy, the same chemical allergy that I have. And it is, again, very loosely based. It's like there are differences in the stories, but I feel like there's something very personal and heart-centered, but also very profound in these kinds of children's books, which is both a gift and also I wonder if the age appropriateness is not for kindergarten in some of these cases, because it is a sad story, and maybe people would be concerned, like maybe children would be concerned about getting these kind of allergies after these, concerned about chemicals. I know when my kids came home after they learned about the Terry Fox run, they were both worried about cancer. They were both scared of cancer. They were telling me, I'm scared of cancer. And that is a fact of life, is that our kids get exposed to all sorts of things, and they learn what to be worried about and what they shouldn't be worried about. But I also don't want to burden them with all of the things that every other adult has to deal with, whether as patients, healthcare professionals, or anyone else who is dealing with something serious going on.